For the first time in the franchise's history, Power Rangers will not be producing a season of the television series for broadcast this year. Despite several Super Sentai still waiting for adaptation, the brand has simply proven to be too expensive for the low ratings the series gets on mainstream television nowadays. And this is something truly sad to me, as Power Rangers has been an integral part of my media consumption since I was a child. This franchise tackled sensitive subject matter and lessons of morality in an interesting way, and usually wrapped things up with a giant robot battle at the end to make things memorable. No matter what era you were raised on, you were given a spectacle as a viewer. The show itself is also a marvel of ingenious design, being one of the first live-action television broadcasts to produce a show with a hybrid of Japanese and American footage. Much of this show's development costs were slashed because of how much money they were able to borrow from its Sentai counterpart. Yet, despite such a legacy, as of 2024, the franchise has been placed on a shelf to gather dust until somebody decides it's worth spending money on again. So today, I've gathered a list of things I'd like to see out of a return to glory for the Rangers franchise. Except this time, we aren't aiming for television. No, we're going to go bigger. Today, I'm going to pitch for you guys a Power Rangers Cinematic Universe, or PRCU. Power Rangers has expanded into several forms of media, including TV, streaming specials, video games, a tabletop D&D franchise, standalone movies, and even a comic book multiverse. So I think it's about time to lean into some of that multimedia goodness, and instead of cutting corners to make a television show that barely meets ratings standards, we aim higher and produce a massive film franchise that will reach more people and appeal to wider audiences. So I plan to just lay out my thoughts for you all to enjoy and critique, and maybe someone more talented than me will get inspired by my thought process as I share my ideas. This video will borrow footage from Power Rangers media, such as the television shows, Sentai episodes, the already established movies, and so on, to better help paint a picture of my idea. I also will be openly speaking about the Rangers in general, so this is your one and only spoiler warning for pretty much the entire franchise. So beware of that, and maybe go watch that season you've been putting off before finishing this video. Without any further delays, here's the pitch for my Power Rangers Cinematic Universe. The premise of the PRCU is to establish a long, hard-fought war between the forces of good and evil. The Rangers have always existed in this universe, though to a much lesser degree than initially presented. Rather than having Zordon manifest the morphing grid into the power coins and the Z-Wave spreading its powers across the universe, we're going to have multiple Ranger teams already at work simultaneously in this universe. Teams like the Aquitar Alien Rangers, Time Force, Space Patrol Delta, Mystic Force, Samurai, and Ninja Steel teams are already at play. These ones mostly work because they manipulate the grid using mystical artifacts, or exist in different points of time where technology is more advanced. But this universe needs a domino piece to push everything else into motion. A trigger point of sorts that gets the greater forces of evil to move, forcing Zordon and the other mentors' hands. This is where the first movie in the franchise will be, essentially, our Iron Man, our Man of Steel. And who better to take the lead on such a momentous occasion than that of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Zordon and Alpha 5, and the Wicked Witch of the Moon herself, Rita Repulsa. let me go over the maps for the first 3 phases of my PRCU. I'll be describing them using similar language as the MCU for clarity's sake, but if this idea ever actually got picked up, obviously we'd have to change a few terms. Now, you might notice a few weird placements going on here on this first slide, but I need you to just trust me for a minute here, okay? I'll explain everything. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is the first on our docket here, the launch point for this entire project. We want a classic action-adventure movie with a light found family motif. Our first hero team is formed here, Zordon is introduced and his importance is only slightly touched upon. At the end, Rita Repulsa makes a universe-altering decision that affects more than just our team of heroes. Alien Rangers of Aquitar are up next, however in a completely different capacity. This movie will actually take place on Aquitar, and Rita's actions at the end of the first movie will be on full display as new brazen villains make their appearance across the galaxy. The Alien Rangers will do battle with their biggest threat to date, and make contact with Zordon at the end of the movie. Power Rangers Turbo will arrive on the scene next, and I know what you're thinking. Manic, we haven't even made it to Zeo yet. Why are you introducing the Turbo Rangers? And the answer to that, dear viewer, is this.
Because I want to.
We're talking about a cinematic universe here, and having the same team of characters and power sets back to back would just get boring. So the idea here is to introduce as many teams as we can run simultaneously. This Turbo lineup will be the characters from the second half of Turbo, meaning TJ, Carlos, Ashley, Cassie, and Justin will be the stars of the show. The first movie will debut with Demetria as their mentor, and Divatox arriving on Earth in search of the Zeo Crystal. The Turbo Rangers will be based out of another town, maybe introducing Reefside a little early, or another town on the US East Coast, opposite to the Mighty Morphin Rangers, which are on the West Coast somewhere in California. Speaking of which, Mighty Morphin will return for their second movie afterward, introducing the Green Ranger under Rita's control, following her actions at the end of the first MMPR movie. The step up in opposition will force Zordon and Alpha to develop the Thunder Zords, and by the end of the movie, the Rangers will have defeated and turned Tommy, and Zed will make his debut in a post-credits scene. Time Force will also make a seemingly random appearance here, but honestly, it's for a pretty neat purpose. The idea is to get other Rangers from other eras involved earlier in the timeline for the PRCU, though we want things to remain similar to the TV show events in some capacity. Rancic will escape through time like he does in the source material, but his goal is different. He'll use technology from Biolab to fix his time-traveling device, and the Rangers will have to stop him from interfering with the events of the climax from the first MMPR movie. A crossover between MMPR and the Alien Rangers will finish off Phase 1. Zed's arrival on Earth to not only assist but also wed Rita will get a mystic artifact brought by Rito, Rita's brother. The artifact will unlock a spell that the two of them can use to reverse time, de-aging the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. While Zordon sneaks away to return the Rangers to their prime, he'll beckon the Alien Rangers to Earth to protect them. However, waiting for them will be the Alien Rangers' arch-nemesis, Hydro Hog, powered up by Zed and Rita. The Mighty Morphin Power Rangers will achieve their goal and team up with the Alien Rangers to defeat Hog and one of Zed's newest monsters. Phase 2 begins with the first appearance of the Zeo Rangers. Again, we're kind of jumping out of line here, because the Zeo team hasn't even been established yet in the Mighty Morphin roster. However, the Zeo team will still be that of the original, with Kat, Tanya, Adam, Rocky, and yes, Tommy, who will essentially just have to be pulling double duty or something. This movie will begin with a sort of treasure planet hook. where a rogue alien will arrive on Earth with the coordinates of the Zeo Crystal, being pursued by the Machine Empire and is intercepted by Tommy Oliver. The situation will force him to acquire the crystal first and use its powers to recruit a new team to defeat the Empire. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers will return for their third installment featuring an upgrade arc. Zed and Rita are still in full swing, using their combined strength to assault Earth with increasing destruction. Zordon will insist that the team undergo special training to obtain new powers from Ninjor, who gives them access to the ninja powers from the end of the third season of the show. Special cameos from Ivan Ooze, Dulcea, and the Tengu Warriors are a must throughout this film. Master Vile finally appears at the end of this movie. Time Force will get its sequel next, to pay off their appearance in the first phase. The focus this time, however, will be on the Quantum Ranger and Frax, and heavily rely on the Trizerium crystals as magical MacGuffins to push the plot along. The movie will end with Eric and Wes quashing their beef, becoming more like rivals instead of enemies, and Rancic taking special interest in the crystals that came from Frax's Doomtron after the final battle. Zeo will hop back into the spotlight for their second film, introducing a series of characters that had no part until a random team-up episode in the TV show, King Mondo's Generals. These guys were the villains of Forever Red, a Wild Force episode, and were inexplicably alive after Zordon's Z-Wave despite its far-reaching energy and them being a part of the Alliance during In Space. So we want to highlight them a little here, forcing the Rangers to upgrade their power set and making them do battle with an assortment of really evil robots. The movie will end with the Power Rangers returning to their chamber, only for it to be in ruins and Zordon's energy tube is completely missing. Turbo's sequel will follow that up, with Divatox's Ace in the Hole being played to make the first true victory against the Power Rangers. Using her bottomless reserves of cash and her monster army, Divatox will take the fight directly to the Rangers by launching a diversionary tactic. She'll distract the Rangers with threats to the Earth's oceans, and while they're busy with that, Divatox will sneak into the power chamber and incapacitate Zordon, abducting him and fleeing to space. When the Turbo Rangers finally figure out that they've been duped, and realizing that they need to act fast, they hijacked the launch of a satellite and attempt to chase Divatox. Justin will stay behind, not only to stay with his family, but also to warn the other Rangers of the impending chaos. In Space will make its triumphant debut as the final film of Phase 2 and introduce us to the big reveal. This version of Rita, Zed, Mondo, and Divatox are all allied together, led by a supreme leader named Dark Spectre. They have captured Zordon, the icon and mastermind of the Power Rangers, and will proceed with intergalactic takeover. Andros makes his appearance to bail out the Turbo Rangers, and together they form the new Space Rangers in an attempt to rescue Zordon and defeat Dark Spectre's armies, led by the newly introduced Astronema. Phase 3 starts with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and their first mission without Zordon to guide them. Master Vile has assumed command of Zed and Rita's operation on the moon, and has begun their assault. The Rangers will need to use the combined use of their Dino, Thunder, and Ninja powers to defeat their onslaught. By the end, all but the Dino Zords are destroyed, Trini will be defeated in battle, and Master Vile will fall, leaving Zed and Rita behind to formulate the counterattack. In Space makes its return after, with more intergalactic shenanigans to fuel the fire. Their main quest is to find Zordon, where they run repeatedly into Astronema's army. After seeing failure more than a few times, she decides to up the ante with input from Darkonda, who sells her the Psycho Rangers. With their help, she launches an all-out offensive, backing the Space Rangers into a corner. It isn't until the appearance of the Silver Ranger that they're able to turn the tide, forcing the Rangers to not only overpower the Psychos, but outsmart Astronema so that they'll never taste defeat like they did from Divatox ever again. The Zeo Rangers get their third entry next, with the appearance of Mondo's estranged son, Prince Gasket, and his lover, Archerina. The two have come to Earth at Dark Specter's request, to heal the divide in his army that their marriage has driven. They do this by taking on the Zeo Rangers, and with Zordon gone, attempt to steal the Zeo Crystal from them. Mondo lends his aid by giving Gasket full control of his army, including his giant machines and spaceships. The Zeo Rangers are pushed to the brink, and have a majority of their equipment destroyed before finally taking down Gasket and angering Mondo. Time Force also finishes a trilogy here, ending with their 3-episode epic condensed into a film. Rancic has developed a super weapon attached to his ship, using the leftover Trizerium crystals from Frax's Doomtron. With it, Rancic will attempt to rip a hole in the fabric of space-time and establish himself as a ruler of all time, free to do as he pleases when and how he wants. Knowing that they can't let that happen, the Time Force Rangers establish a lengthy counteroffensive, breaking the rules of time travel themselves in an attempt to stop Rancic before he even escapes. But with each failure and setback, the Rangers get picked off one by one, getting sent back to their original times. The film ends with Wes settling his dues with Eric and the other Rangers, and taking on Rancic one-on-one, until his daughter's humanity finally wins him over, and he destroys his own ship. As the movie ends, the home base in the future will remark about how this wasn't the first time the side of good lost, and it will show a sneak peek to the true ending to this first saga. The end of Phase 3 is going to be huge, basically what each film was leading up to until now. The end of the original franchise is going to be retrofitted and played out over a 2-part finale titled Countdown to Destruction, Parts 1 and 2. In Part 1, Zordon's location will finally be revealed, and the Space Rangers will attempt to retrieve him. Dark Specter will also enact his plan of final assault. Mondo will unleash his entire army upon the Zeo Rangers. Rita and Zed will mobilize every putty and all of Finster's monsters. Divatox will continue to Aquitar and bombard the alien Rangers with her limitless resources. And Astronema will lay in wait to ambush the Space Rangers where Zordon is supposedly being held. As the final moments clash, all sides will take losses and victories, though the odds are heavily tilted in Dark Specter's favor. Several Ranger teams will lose, and those that make it out will hide on Earth. The movie will end with Zordon being brought aboard Astronema's ship, Darkonda ramming his own into Dark Specter and destroying him, and the remnants of each Ranger team hiding out on Earth as Astronema is crowned the Queen of Evil. The second part of Countdown to Destruction will essentially wrap up all of the first 3 phases. The Space Rangers will board Astronema's ship looking for Zordon, and the other Ranger teams will attempt to stave off her forces on Earth to buy them time. Everything will end largely the same as it does in the TV show, though with slightly altered situations so that each Ranger team gets their time in the spotlight. The Mighty Morphin Rangers will battle it out with Rita's family in Angel Grove, with Jason appealing to Rita herself and the goodness that is in her heart buried below. The Zeo Rangers will fight against Mondo and his family, where he forsakes them for destroying his son, despite having another he neglects. The Alien Rangers will fight off Divatox, attempting to separate her from her selfish ways and what she's taken away from the universe. The Space Rangers will do battle with Astronema's personal guards, and Andros will attempt to appeal to his sister without destroying her. The only condition to change here is that when he's forced to destroy Zordon's energy tube, the resulting Z-wave only reaches the end of the current galaxy that they're within. This way, the other alien forces from future installments will have a reason to actually show up. Andros will get his sister back, Rita will become an innocent sorceress again, Zed will revert to his original form, Mondo and the Machine Empire will basically disintegrate, having come from nothing and being built purely to destroy. And Divatox will return to being the version of herself before being thrown into the family pirate business. The Rangers take the time to lick their wounds and are able to find happiness where they can. Zordon may have ended this war, but evil knows no bounds, and so long as a single shadow lingers, the forces of the Power Rangers will be needed once again, eventually. As you can see here, there isn't a ton of depth for the plots in each of these movies. This is a pitch for the concept of the PRCU after all, and if I were here to iron out the story for each movie within the first 3 phases, I'd be here for a lot longer than this video is already. But the gist of it is that the first 3 phases will be leading up to the countdown to destruction, and that each phase within will all lead to a plot reveal of some kind. The first phase contains the origin of several Ranger teams, each stepping up to bat to contend with a different evil force seeking domination or simply more power. Rita's actions at the end of the first movie will signal to the other factions that it's time to set things in motion. The second phase will be the gathering of the Alliance of Evil, where Dark Spectre makes his presence known and the Rangers will have to step up to combat them. The third phase is the culmination of the efforts from both sides. The Alliance will begin acting like a real alliance, and the Rangers will have to grow personally and powerfully to properly fight them off. The final 2 movies being a giant crossover event also just seems fitting. The Power Rangers TV shows regularly cross over with each other, and those events are epic. Making the first saga end on one would be historic and make for a great movie showing. Now, while I don't have a plan for each and every single movie laid out, I did take the time to formulate a base for the first movie in this franchise. I put together a fan casting and a plot outline, so before this video wraps up, let me show you what I had in mind for Cinematic Universe Reboot franchise. Starting with the setting, it's been speculated and half confirmed that the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Angel Grove is located somewhere in Central California. The landscape and environment match that of the area, and I think it'd be fitting to play off that idea for this movie. Having Angel Grove take place in what's probably the most modern, youthful city in America just makes a lot of sense. We want to appeal to a modern era of kids to get more of them to watch the franchise, so making it take place somewhere relatable is key. We also want to use a lot of iconography and landmarks that people will recognize as well. Having such a large state is also important for having varied terrain as backdrops for the many fighting and exploration scenes in this movie. Since this will also target a modern era, things like cell phones, security cameras, and technology in general will be highlighted constantly. To best suit the cast of this film, we would also have to pull in some youthful talent that isn't afraid of being athletic. One thing that the 2017 reboot film missed that I was slightly upset about was the lack of martial arts and general athleticism that was important for the first few seasons. Jason was a football player, and Trini practiced fighting techniques in her alone time, but that was about it. So the goal is to center this new cast in younger actors, somewhere in their 20s, with a tinge of fighting spirit. Based on this criteria, I've chosen Tanner Buchanan as Jason Scott, Wyatt Oleff as Billy Cranston, Aubrey Joseph as Zach Taylor, Ashley Liao as Trini Kwan, and Brenna D'Amico as Kimberly Hart. Each of these people have had their roles in action films playing athletic characters with plenty of stunts and moving around. None of them are over the age of 30 as well, making them easy to pass off as teenagers in their final few years of high school. In a cameo appearance, I'd also like to see Boo Boo Stewart make an appearance as Tommy Oliver, whose previous work just nails that sense of mysteriousness mixed with bravado. For a supporting cast, I've got Caleb Emery as Bulk, Finn Wolfhard as Skull, and Jack Black as Ernie. These guys would provide most of the comic relief in this movie, and each of them have become renowned for effort into that sort of role. I really couldn't settle on a proper voice actor for Zordon, but my top candidate ended up being Lawrence Fishburne. He's got a deep baritone voice that is impactful, and is capable of displaying the subtlety of both deep inner rage and soothing compassion, which is basically Zordon personified. A personal favorite choice of mine for the role of Alpha 5 would have to be Jim Parsons. He's capable of playing the agitated and quick-speaking panic type, and his voice alone could play the scientist role easily. But that might just be a symptom of typecasting for him at this point. For the villain roles, I'd have to choose Constant Wu as the titular Rita Repulsa, with her minions Goldar and Finster being portrayed by Dave Bautista and Andy Samberg respectively. Constance has background in theater performances, making her a good choice for the dramatic role of Rita. Dave Bautista as Goldar just makes perfect sense, and I'd really like to see his kind of presentation on a character known for being boisterous and loud. Samberg's voice as the timid Finster is also just a role he's destined to play. He often comes to odds with Rita's other minions, so the arguments would be fun, but he's also just ever so slightly in charge because he's in control of Rita's monsters, so their dynamic would also be a highlight to watch. Now, I'll go over a basic plot summary for this movie, as it will be important in the grand scheme of things for the entire PRCU. Just remember, not all of this is set in stone, and is most certainly an outline rather than a final draft, so bear with me if there are any inconsistencies or things don't make sense right away. Firstly, it should be established that we're attempting to create a new origin point for this franchise. The Power Rangers should be a force that has existed throughout time and space already, and Rita's appearance is a turning point for the battle of good versus evil. I like the idea presented in the 2017 movie, where Zordon is a former Red Ranger, and having to fight Rita when they were at their prime. Have Rita be raised by a coven of witches or something, and have an innate power that gets fostered by her mentors. When Lord Zedd's army reaches her planet, she wishes for the Power Rangers to save them with all her might, but to her horror, they just don't show up, and her home and family is decimated. Zedd then pulls a Thanos and convinces her to join him, sensing her power, and turns her against the forces of good and unleashes her fury upon the universe. Zordon's team of Rangers are only able to stop her by sealing her in a dumpster and burying it on Earth's moon. In order to do this, Zordon must sacrifice his physical form and is disseminated throughout space-time. Alpha 5 gathers his essence and seals him in his energy tube as they research ways to bring him back. Rita swears that she'll break from her imprisonment one day, so Zordon establishes a new command center on the planet Earth to prepare for her resurgence. Thousands of years go by, and Rita has remained sealed. Zordon and Alpha monitor the coming and going of planet Earth and its inhabitants, the human race. During one of his regular hypersleeps, humanity gains the ability to travel into space regularly. There they discover the dumpster, and with some coercion from within, the astronauts open it and set the witch free. This wakes Zordon and Alpha, who enacts their response protocol, summoning a new team of Power Rangers to continue the fight. 5 teenagers from Angel Grove, a city just outside the desert where the command center is located, are chosen to become the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Jason, a black belt in karate and a natural athlete. Zach, a hip-hop cultural enthusiast and fellow karate artist. Billy, a quiet and intelligent young man with only a few close friends. Trini, recently moved to Angel Grove but steeped in her Asian heritage. And Kimberly, a gymnastics prodigy and an ace student. The teens all know of each other in some form or another, as they attend the same school and similar extracurricular activities. Trini studies with Billy, Zach and Jason practice karate together, Kimberly and Jason play sports for their school, etc. But they all haven't been on the same team until now. The teens are hesitant to accept their new responsibilities, but after the arrival of Rita Repulsa's first assault, a wave of putty patrol, the teens decide to ally with Zordon and begin their battle against the evil sorceress. This movie will contain 3 separate supervillain monsters to do battle with. It should be established that there will be no gigantic climactic battle against Rita in this one movie. She is a long-term enemy in the show and should be in this movie franchise as well. So the first movie will deal with a battle against your minions with increasing difficulty. First, the putties by themselves. Then accompanying them, a full-fledged alien monster, though is noticeably easy to defeat as Rita and Finster are still dusting off their powers. The Rangers defeat it by combining their specialty weapons. The second one is much more intimidating and is able to be grown to massive size. The Rangers must summon the Dinozords in order to defeat it. This will trigger Rita to consider her own powers and rediscover the morphing grid. She will summon a third monster that is both tough to defeat and interferes with the Rangers' regular lives so that she can tap into the grid. While the Rangers figure out how to combine the Dinozords into the Megazord, Rita will come to Earth and use her own power coin to breach the morphing grid, energize it, and send a shockwave throughout the entire universe. This will set up the Green Ranger's appearance in the sequel movie. However, it's Rita's crack into the morphing grid that sets off a chain reaction, opening the door to other movies and their potential. Until this point, the morphing grid wasn't widely known or acknowledged. Very few entities were tapping into it in order to summon their Rangers. When Rita was able to breach the grid, it caused a massive surge throughout space-time, knocking over the dominoes and establishing new branches of heroes and villains throughout the universe and dimensions beyond. Ancient civilizations like the Animarium awakens, the demons slumbering under Mariner Bay begin to stir, the Dino Gems being researched by Anton Mercer energize, Dr. K is able to trace the wave to the grid, all sorts of power begins to unravel, bringing not only new teams of heroes into the fold, but also forces of darkness as well. At the end of the first Time Force movie, this information will be established directly to the audience, with the Rangers chasing one of Rancic's mutants into this ignition point specifically, and peeking into all of the different dimensions to see just how far-reaching the breach actually was. Anyway guys, this is just my interpretation of the best things about Power Rangers and their lore, and what I would like to see out of a big screen reboot. There's a snowball's chance in hell that this ever actually makes it beyond my little YouTube video, but if you see Saban, Hasbro, or anyone else attempting to make this idea into reality and they follow my guide, well, you heard it here first. Let me know what you thought about my pitch down below, and tell me what your favorite series of Power Rangers was, and what you'd like to see out of a silver screen debut for it. That's gonna do it for me today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to stay awesome, and be kind and rewind. Have a wonderful night, and may the power protect you. Excelsior.